Amanda and I started dating when she was in 9th grade and I was in 10th. During my freshman year of college, it was the spring break of my freshman year, her granddaddy died. And the family cleaned out his belongings not long after that. And when they did, her dad brought this to me. Her granddaddy was a pastor of a small Baptist church in East Texas. And I got his Bible. Whenever I received the Bible, I knew it was more than just another copy of God's Word. Mike Wood, her dad, he knew I have copies of the Bible. It's not because he thought I didn't have one. But when I received this, I took it as a statement from her dad. Not just a statement, but almost a challenge. You see, we'd been dating for a long time by then, and her dad knew that we would eventually get married. And this was a statement of, I trust you with my daughter, and I expect you to live like John Wood lived in his marriage. You see, whenever I got this Bible, I believe it was almost preparing me for the assignment to come, which Mike knew that was going to happen. He knew I was going to propose. At some point, we would get married. And this was a statement of here's what you need to do to be ready for what's coming down the road. As I was preparing for this morning, I will tell you honestly, I wrestled with the Lord as to what text to deal with today, knowing that this is the midst of missions month and trying to figure out what to do. And I shared with you last week, I wish God would take me to text in the book of Acts because I love the book of Acts. But today He took me to 1 Kings. And so I'm going to invite you to go to 1 Kings also. In 1 Kings, we see pretty much nothing about missions. What we find in 1 Kings chapter 2 is a dying father who is addressing his son. Because Solomon is about to become king of Israel. He's about to have the job of a lifetime, an assignment that is bigger than anything he's ever done. And his daddy realizes, because he's been the king, his daddy realizes this job is bigger than you can wrap your mind around. So before you get the assignment, I need you to do something on the inside. And I believe that's what God's doing with us this missions week today, is He knows that He has something big for us down the road, but He needs to do something in us this morning to prepare us for what's coming. So I'm going to invite you to turn to 1 Kings chapter 2. I want to look at verses 1 and 2 and 3. And so it reads like this. As David's time to die drew near, he charged Solomon his son, saying, I'm going the way of all the earth. Be strong, therefore, and show yourself a man, and keep the charge of the Lord your God, to walk in His ways, to keep His statutes, His commandments, His ordinances, His testimonies, according to what is written in the law of Moses, that you may succeed in all that you do, and wherever you turn. Lord, I know that we're stopping mid-sentence here, but this is as far as you have told me to go today. I don't understand what your plans are, but I do know that if you have written it in this book, these plans are amazing and you're drawing us to you. My prayer today is that somehow, some way you would do a work inside of me and inside of us so that we are ready for the assignment to come. I confess that come missions offering collection week, the last thing I want to do is just put money in a box. Lord, I want to give you me, whatever it is, wherever, whatever. And you're going to have to prepare me and us. And I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. I want to begin looking at what David was charging Solomon with. And he realized that as time grew short on his end, it was time for Solomon to grow up. He needed to show himself a man for the task that was ahead because it was daunting. You have to get this right or vast amounts of people are going to pay a deadly price. I believe that's what happens here today. So the first thing we see is in verse 2. He tells his son, "Be strong, therefore, and show yourself a man." This task is to be taken on with the resolve of never giving up. Never giving up. As we read this, we see that he's telling him, be strong. Now, this again is one of those incredible words. It's Hazak. I hope and pray that this rings a bell from a good while back. We did a message on be strong and courageous. Rock Hazak Amatz, where this is basically a war cry saying it is time to run headlong into this assignment. This word in its particular use means that this is the most significant and central of importance in the passage. You need to realize that everything that's coming after this hangs on the fact that you are going to do this with gusto. And so he says, be strong. Now, I've shared with you guys before that if you really want to see kind of the meaning of a Hebrew word, in their mindset, you have to go back to the first time it's used in Scripture. If you want to find out how this word really should be used in another text, go back to the first use in Scripture. And I want to take you to the first use of be strong in Scripture. And it's found in Genesis 19, verse 16. So hold your hand right here and go to Genesis 19. In Genesis chapter 19, you find that Sodom and Gomorrah are about to be destroyed. I want to get a running start into this, so we're going to start at verse 14. And Lot went out and spoke to his son-in-laws who were to marry his daughters, and he said, "Get up, get out of this place, for the Lord will destroy the city." But he appeared to his son-in-laws to be jesting. And when morning dawned, the angels urged Lot, saying, "Up, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, lest you be swept away in the punishment of the city." But he hesitated. So the men hazaked his hand in the hand of his wife and the hands of his daughters, for the compassion of the Lord was upon him. And they brought him out and put him outside of the city. Did you catch that? The first use is whenever these 2 angels realized that Lot and his family were kind of hesitant, and the Lord was about to destroy the city. And it says these angels zocked onto the hands of Lot and his family and took off so that they could be delivered from destruction. They weren't going to let go. This word means to grab on, get a hold of yourself. Don't let go, because we must escape destruction. Let's save life, not destroy it. If you have ever walked with a kid on a trail that goes down steeply on one side, or if you've ever taken a child to a waterfall, I am a nervous cat anytime I ever go to waterfalls, Niagara Falls. Oh my goodness. Because there's always some parent that doesn't watch their kid. And I'm thinking, if this kid goes over, nobility says, I have to go too. So just hold on to your kid. And then there's me who I would have a death grip and say, you're not getting out of my grasp. That's Hazak. I've got a hold of you and we are not letting go. That's what this is. And so whenever David approaches his son on his deathbed, he says, son, there's something that you need to hold on to with a death grip. You are not letting go. You're charging head first in. And he says, show yourself a man. I will tell you, this is one of those things that I'm guessing most guys, somewhere deep inside, you have longed to know what it means to be a real man. We grow up watching He-Man and G.I. Joe and all these heroes and superheroes. That shapes what we think being a real man is. Growing up as a kid, watching Rambo. And somehow in my mind, I see that that's the kind of action-packed life I need to be a real man. And here you have David, who, whenever he was younger, people would say Saul has killed his thousands, David has killed his tens of thousands. And David himself is a real hero in the faith as far as having killed all kinds of enemies. He is a military hero. And at the end of his life, he's spelling out for his son what a real man is. And it has nothing to do with how prowess he was on the battlefield. Has nothing to do with how many swords he collected. Had everything to do with how he handled God's word. Now I want you to know there's another couple of places in this particular text that says he needed to learn how to use his wisdom correctly and how to be kind, but the Lord did not give me permission to preach on that, so we're going to stick with this first part. A real man, first and foremost, handles God's word correctly. And I want you to know, if you're in here, guys, and you struggle with real manhood, you will find it in how your life is shaped by this. So let's find out what we're supposed to do. He says, be strong, therefore, and show yourself a man, and keep the charge of the Lord your God. We're supposed to guard the word given to us. Guard the word. Let's look at where this comes from. He says, keep the charge of the Lord your God. Now, just so that you guys know, I'm sure this is absolutely enthralling to you. My notes actually have the Hebrew on one side and the English over here. I'm sharing some of this stuff from you from this Hebrew side. So he says first, he says, keep the charge of the Lord your God. Now, the word charge here, or as your text may say something different, he says, keep the charge. This is the word that means a guard house or a guard post. It's a place of watching to guard and protect. He's basically telling him, we have a post, and it is to be right in front of the Lord himself. Now, when we were in Israel, we got to go to a hillside that overlooked another hill that was nothing but gardens. And in the middle of this huge garden was this stone cylinder that came up out of the ground. And what that was a watchtower in the middle of the garden. Because you see, if you read other places in Scripture, Israel has a problem with thieves, and they have a problem with foxes. And so, if you and your family were absolutely dependent upon what's growing in the garden, you would have somewhere nearby a guard tower so that somebody could stay up in it, and I don't know, chunk rocks, spears, whatever, at something that came in to take your stuff. Now, because we have Walmart and grocery stores so easily accessible to us, we don't understand this. If what you've got growing in the ground is all you've got to eat this year, you're probably going to guard it with your life. And that's what they did. That's the mindset that he's coming to this text with, is he's telling Solomon, listen, pal, if you're going to be the king that God wants you to be, you need to guard your view of the Lord. I've said here, guard the word given to you. And he says, and keep charge of the Lord your God. Watch the Lord your God. Don't take your eyes off of him. I wonder, in a time and in a society that is so busy, how easy is it to let little foxes or thieves come in and steal our time and attention? How many times do we sit down with great intentions of spending time in this, but something happens? And the little foxes come in and it just steals the fruit from our time with him. And he's telling his son, if you're going to be the king God wants you to be, you need to set up posts as though your life depended on it. Because if you don't guard your view of the Lord, everything's going to be skewed. He goes on. He says, not only keep the charge of the Lord your God, but he says to walk in his ways. To walk literally means to live out intentionally. To go this way. In his ways, it's one's whole journey, the way of God. I can't help but to picture this in this way. I'm sure many of you have probably played charades at some point. It's where you draw out a word, a written word, and then you have to display what that word is. But you can't talk. He's telling his son, there's written instruction for you. And God has a particular way He wants your life to be lived. And Solomon, what I want you to do, because the assignment is so big being a king, I want you to read that instruction. And then when you get up in the morning, I want you to put what you just read on display. Act it out. Live out what you just saw. Some of you guys know that I'm doing my very best to try to memorize or to put into my heart the Sermon on the Mount. It's going to be a daunting task. But understand this, when Jesus saw the crowds, He went up on the mountain. And when He sat down, His disciples came to Him. And He opened His mouth and He began teaching them, saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of God. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." And I can read that all day long. But it's one thing to read, "Blessed are the meek." David's telling Solomon is, if you come across a word like meek, that means not that you're a doormat for everybody, but that you come to the Lord dependent upon Him, and you're going to act out there as though the Lord Himself were acting. That's what meekness is. And He said, whenever you are meek, then you'll inherit the earth. He goes on and He says, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for you shall be satisfied." I can read that, but then my question is, am I living that out? Do I long just like I want something to eat and drink? Do I want righteousness that bad? And if so, what am I going to do to go out and live righteously? That does not necessarily mean the righteousness of God, because I've already got that. What I need to do is I need to live righteous in front of my peers. So it's one thing to read His word. It's one thing to hear, "Blessed are the merciful, for they shall be shown mercy." But whenever I leave here, am I actually going to be merciful to somebody who needs it? I'll find out when I drive between here and Walmart. What happens when I read, "Blessed are the poor in heart, for they shall see God," or pure in heart? Is my heart really pure? Am I putting up guards to make sure my heart is pure? Do you see that's what it means whenever it says that I have to live, I have to walk in His ways? He's telling him, Solomon, you need to walk in His ways. And church, I want you to know that Solomon didn't. If you go back and look, the text tells us in Deuteronomy, there's verses all through the law that say that you should not have multiple wives. In the vast amounts that he had, you should not have large amounts of horses. He did. He had tons of horses, tons of stables. He did not put to practice what he read. We call him a very wise man, but I'm telling you, he may have been wise, but he was double-hearted. I want you to know, church, it's not enough to wake up in the mornings and read your Bible, which I hope you're doing. You can read this from cover to cover. But there's got to be a point where you live out what you've read, where you animate the text you read this morning. Then the text says we're not only to keep his, walk in his ways, but we're to keep his statutes. Look here, we're supposed to protect whatever prescriptions he gives you. Protect whatever prescriptions he gives you. It says keep his statutes and his commandments. The commands, these two are almost identical in word. We're to keep. First, let me just tell you what keep means here. It's a military term. It means that you're quickly using offensive and defensive measures to protect. Be ready to engage with whatever jeopardizes what is entrusted to you. The word statutes here is the word prescriptions. I'm sure many of you understand prescriptions. Now, King David didn't have a pharmacy down the road and get a little bottle like this. But this is what it means to have a prescription. It means that somebody who knows more than you do tells you what you need in order to keep you safe and healthy. That's a prescription. This is not a recommendation. If the doctor writes a prescription to you, the doctor is assuming you are going to follow to a letter what's best for your body. But see, again, most of us, that's not how we do we tell the doctor, well, I'll be okay if I don't take the whole prescription. Or we pick and choose. Yes, you're going to take your blood pressure medicine every day faithfully. You're going to make sure that you get your heart medicine in. But whenever you go for some sort of cough or something, you're like, I'll figure out what's best for me. See, we live in a society that is used to picking and choosing which prescriptions we want to use. That's not what this text is saying, and that's where Solomon got himself in trouble. He read God's prescriptions. He just decided to do the pick and choose method. And on his deathbed, David is saying, please, son, please, you need to stand guard like the military over these prescriptions because you don't want to get rid of, you don't want to see vanish these prescriptions that God's given. You need to guard them with everything you have. My question, church, is are we guarding the prescriptions God's given us? When God tells us things to do as husbands and wives, when He tells us things that we're supposed to do as far as right relationships, not having crooked scales, loving justice and mercy, when he tells Titus to pen to these older men and these older women these instructions to pour into the younger generation, this is a prescription. It's just as solid as the 10 Commandments, and he's telling them you need to pour into the next generation. Is that one of those things that we say, yeah, don't really have time for that? We'll skip on to something else. I'm telling you, if we're going to ever be who He has created us to be, if we ever want to get the assignment that's coming next, more than just dumping money into a box, we have got to be people who look at this as His prescription and we say, Lord, I'm going to defend whatever you say in here to the death. If you've told this to me, I want to live it out as much as I possibly can. I may not be perfect, but I'm going to do everything I possibly can to make this the source of what I live by. And then we have to agree with His moral judgments of what is right and wrong. We have to agree with His moral judgments. He says that we're supposed to keep His testimonies according to what is written in the law of Moses. To keep His testimonies or His judgments. This is the moral basis of His legal yes and no. I tell you this because Harold Weiss tells a story of a former park ranger in Yellowstone National Park. This forest ranger had gathered a group of people that he was going to take to a fire lookout because it had a beautiful view from up on high. And this park ranger took this group and he started his trek. And along this trek, he started talking about the flowers that they were seeing and all of the animals. And as he's walking and teaching, he hears static over his radio. And his static over his radio is disturbing his speech on flowers and animals, so he turns it off. And they keep making their way up the mountain to this fire lookout so that they can see this beautiful view. And when they get close, they come across some scout who had been sent. He's huffing and puffing, and he finds the ranger and he says, "Why didn't you answer your radio?" The ranger says, "Because I was teaching about nature, the flowers." And he said, "Do you understand? We've been trying to get a hold of you. There was a grizzly bear stalking your group the entire way. Your whole group was in danger, and you cut your radio off." And I can't help but to wonder if that's what David's telling Solomon here. If you are going to be a man after his heart, don't turn your radio off. He's saying there's a moral obligation that you and I have to listen to this, because if God says this is important, I can't say it's not important. And I wonder how many times I've picked and chosen from the text what I want to hear, what I want to teach on, what I want to live about. And the other stuff I turn off because it doesn't interest me. Or it's not the fun stuff to talk about. And it's that very stuff that when I'm not hearing it, puts not just me, but the risk of everyone around me in serious danger. Understand this. When Solomon decided not to heed his father's instruction, when Solomon knew the things of the Word, whenever he knew Scripture, yet he chose not to follow it, do you realize what happened? Go back and read this story. His wives tempted him into bringing false gods into his place, the Lord's place. False worship began to spring up everywhere. These ladies brought in foreign gods into the middle of worship in the city of David, and it happened in the holy places. And Solomon gave his heart, and Scripture does not have a good thing to say about Solomon in the very end. And we find out after Solomon, everything splits and divides. You could say the whole kit and caboodle goes down the drain because Solomon chose to do it his way. My hope and my prayer is that that won't describe us. I want us to listen to the wisdom of this father, to his son whom he loves, and he says, be strong. Be a man. The assignment that you've been given is bigger than yourself, and you can't start anywhere without starting here. So, church, I'm going to ask you this. What has God been teaching you lately that you need to heed? If you can't take me to a text of Scripture, or if you can't show me what you've been learning lately, it's time to start getting into His Word on a daily basis. If you need help with that, I can show you some tools to help with your daily reading. But I really think the Lord wants to use us in the days and weeks to come. But He's got to start here first with us. which starts here. Lord, we come to you right now, and I thank you that you have given me your word. I thank you so long ago that Mike Wood decided to hand this Bible to me and remind me that the assignment was more than just read this book. It was to love my wife like his daddy loved his mom. I pray that we would love you and one another with the love that Christ has shown. And I know full well that we can't do that without these instructions. I pray that we would be a people that is shaped by this book. And in doing so, I pray that you would use us to reach people in Hohenwald and around the world. Lord, I'm convinced that time is getting short. I don't know when you're returning, but it looks like the world is falling apart. And I know your word tells us that one day you're going to come back and get us, and we want to be fully ready for that day. The task is big, but we have you. I love you, Lord, and I pray these things in Jesus' name.